Hey everybody, it's me, Alex Merced, your host here at Gnarly Data Waves, presented to you by Dremio. Let's get on to our featured presentation on how to build an Iceberg data lakehouse with Fivetran and Dremio. And today we're going to have two special guests. We have Kelly Kuleffel, Head of Partner and Sales Engineering over there at Fivetran, and Ramel Garcia, Principal Partner Solutions Architect here at Dremio. Ramel, Kelly, the stage is yours.
Great. Thank you, Alex, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for those who are past 11:59 a.m. We are excited to have you here and talk about how to build an Iceberg data lakehouse with Fivetran and Dremio. So if you can pull out your camera real quick, you can connect with us in LinkedIn by scanning the QR code, and happy to connect. Give it there for a few seconds. All righty. So here's our agenda for this webinar. We are going to talk about who Fivetran is, who Dremio is, and the challenges around data engineering and analytical solutions. And then from there, we'll talk about how Fivetran and Dremio solve those challenges, and then also showing you an integration architecture of Fivetran and Dremio, and then obviously a demo. And then showing you how you can get started with Fivetran and Dremio. All right, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you for some insights or perspectives here around the different use cases we want to capture from our attendees.
Yeah, sounds good, Ramel. Let me have the screen share there. I'm going to go live mode on this. All right. So yeah, it's awesome to be here with the Dremio team. Welcome in, everybody. Wanted to kick this off with your perspective on what is the data workload, or we'll give you an opportunity if you want to put in 2 or 3 data workloads there. Go out to menti.com, enter that code 71065172, and we'd love to see you vote there. Ramel, I tell you what, while we're waiting on everybody to get out to Menti, I'm going to take a picture of that QR code and vote myself here.
Let's make sure this. Vote myself as well.
Make sure this thing is cranking.
Yes, the QR code.
I'm going to vote for a couple of these. I see a lot of, when I ask this question, I see a lot of data centralization, actually a lot of the ones that folks are voting for right now. You and I both come from we both got a pretty good Hadoop space legacy as well. There's a lot of Hadoop modernization going on right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Kelly and I used to work together at Hortonworks 10, 12 years ago before it became Cloudera.
Yeah,
fun days, but with challenges, right?
Yeah, there were some interesting times trying to get data lakes to do what a modern data lakehouse really does today. So this is pretty cool. You know what I don't see, Ramel? Nobody voting for Gen AI and LLMs right now. So that may still be a little bit early days. We'll see. But yeah, data centralization, new data apps. The cool thing is that when you look at a modern data lakehouse approach with S3 and Dremio, really the world gets opened up to any and all of these workloads. So that is cool. We may, maybe we'll come back and revisit that. Let's do this. Appreciate everybody voting. If you have not heard about Fivetran before, think of us as an automated data movement platform. Anytime you need to move data from a source to a destination like S3 for self-service analytics with Dremio, you can use Fivetran. 400 plus connectors across databases, applications, files, event systems. You can create custom connectors. Our whole mission in life is, like when you flip the light switch on at home, flip that on and your data pipelines are just going to work. And that was, Ramel, extremely, extremely difficult to do back in our Hadoop days at Hortonworks. I remember a lot of Scoop Uzi pipelines. And today, even if you say, hey, Kelly, let's build this on our own, Ramel, I think you remember I went over to a consulting firm after Hortonworks, and we got a lot of requests like this. They said, Kelly, I've got this range of sources. I got this thing that I want to move this data to. How do we do that? What's it going to take to do it? How much is it going to cost? And coming from that consulting background, I always think about a number of sprints. How many 2-week sprints is this going to take? And if you ask this question to folks that are building these data pipelines, it's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8, maybe 10, 12 sprints. And if you're really honest with yourself, you go, this may never end because I've got to keep refactoring and maintaining and all that kind of stuff. And that's to say, you've probably worked with customers. I mean, the backlogs just continue to grow for data products today. So it's a big challenge. And what Fivetran is here to do is to help solve that. I don't know, it's probably 7, 8, 10 different dimensions I always got asked for. Kelly, give me speed, give me simplicity, give me self-service, give me scale, security, savings, operational sustainability. To me, that's what Fivetran encapsulates for data acquisition and data replication into a modern data lake approach with S3 and Dremio. So we're going to talk about these things a little bit more in the demo. Ramel, why don't we turn it over to you?
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Talk about who we are here at Dremio. So we are an enterprise open data lakehouse. We empower data analysts to do self-service analytics with data warehouse functionality. And it's enterprise grade with all the security and governance baked in. And we under our storage format, we pretty much use Iceberg as the format for that. And that will allow like any organizations to then analyze their data. And if they want to move to different platforms with Iceberg on it, there's no lock-in to that. And it's a sub-seconds performance when you query your data at really low cost. And that's been the theme, right, for a lot of organizations today where the economy is tough, but they want more out of their existing, team and infrastructure. And so we enable them to really meet that goal. And then we create Apache Arrow, which essentially helps with the query performance in our platform. And there's about 70 million downloads per month, really high adoption to this. And then we are also major contributors to Apache Iceberg and Nessie, which is the data catalog for Iceberg. We are the creator and host of the Subsurface live conference as well, where we have all of the people in community that's using Dremio. We all meet together and talk about how they're using Dremio and the value that they get out of that. We have about 1,000 companies who have adopted Dremio and 5 of the Fortune 10. As you can see here, we have some logos, customers who are currently using Dremio. So here's how it's going to look like. We really simplify a lot of the complexities involved with establishing or even putting up a data platform solution for organization that wants to do data science, your typical reporting, and then digital native apps, right? And Dremio can query data from object storages anywhere and databases as well. And with Dremio, you don't have to copy your data. You can go straight to the source, which really eliminates the need to create duplicate copies of that data, which essentially introduces inconsistency when business analysts consumes that data, right? And then also compounding the complexity of the data pipelines. It's really inexpensive, and then the productivity of data engineers just gets better because they don't have to care and feed in data infrastructure most of the time. And now they're able to build new data products that essentially matters to the bottom line of the business. And we have security in place in here and governance as well. And a lot of the customers enjoy these different benefits. So let's talk about the data engineering challenges. So Kelly talks about the complexities involved in building your ingest pipeline, just to grab the data from somewhere. When I was at Hortonworks, I had to write pig scripts to capture data from API, and that takes time. And when business asks for changes, it even is more complicated to do that. And so we're not just talking about one tool, right? Organizations use multiple tools And guess what? The team that manages that, it doesn't grow. It actually is, you know, reducing to a smaller team size. And then once data lands into a location, organizations create copies of that data to serve up different business unit. And the challenge there is, how do you keep track of those copies and make updates to it? So it's just, really time consuming to do that. And then the transformation happens after, certain jobs kicks off. And the transformation jobs could involve multiple teams, multiple tools, with a very large financial firm that could be between 8 to 12 different tools from 4 to 5 different teams. And with a problem of data quality or data inconsistency, just to find out the root cause for that problem, it takes them about 2 people, 24 hours each to find the root cause. Really time consuming. And then when the output of the transformation is deployed to different data platforms, these different data platforms, have different audiences, and you have to keep track of what is being published to these different downstream systems. And that's the last piece of it, right? You have to validate it to make sure that it went there, the row counts are the same, the schemas are correct, and so on. So there's a lot of things to monitor. Now, if you miss a window of this entire pipeline to complete it, then business can't make decisions, which means they can't, help with maybe generating more revenue. There will be bad customer experience. This could be internal and external because the data that they're looking at the screen is incorrect. Or if you're late at compiling your report for compliance purposes, you get fined. And then obviously, the more copies you create, the more tools that those copies gets into, and the more data platforms to maintain, the complexity just gets compounded. There's also challenges, right, on the analytics side, not just on prepping the data. Back in the day, cubes were the norm, but we all know these days that it's really inefficient. And then data also gets, inconsistent because of these copies of data proliferating within the data warehouse. And then also poor joint performance, right? A lot of organizations move away from data warehouses because of scale, like analyzing petabytes of data. And we've seen that movement of NoSQL technologies for the last 10 years. But the problem with that is they're all flattening it to access that data really fast, but then customers are asking to then enable joint capability on those NoSQL tools. But once you start doing that, the performance is really bad. And then also, just aggregating that data, right? The business have many different business rules, have many requirements in terms of aggregating that data. You have to keep updating that, ensuring that the business rules are up to date. And then also, we all know this, there's no data versioning in data warehouses today, may it be cloud or on-prem. So how can you tell that the data that you're working on is the most up-to-date version of that data? And then obviously making changes, right? So when you change, say for instance, a set of data within the data warehouse, but that is copied into many different tables without really understanding where that is being used, then we're introducing breaking changes to existing query patterns. And then on the consumption side, slow queries, that's very typical for data warehouses, and then also scaling issues, can you scale horizontally, vertically? Can my complex query scale as well as my data scale? And then low query portability. And then concurrency issues, right? I have, let's say customers using, data warehouse, and they're now expanding it not just to internal users, but also their partners and so on. And the number of users just goes exponentially high. So the question then is, can I accommodate 2,000 users? on top of my warehouse? And the answer is that could be challenging, right? Because it's really not designed for that kind of scale. And so here's how we're gonna enable organizations to essentially, resolve those issues and challenges between data engineering and data analytics. And so, Kelly, I'll hand it over to you to talk about, what is required to integrate Dremio with Fivetran here.
Hey, Ramel, you said it so well. I was thinking back as we were working together and, all those things that we were trying to solve when you talk about these challenges, what's associated with what? Are these files associated with those tables, that table? Why are my SQL queries so slow? How can you give me more speed? We had so many different ways we tried to address that. Usually it was just, as you said, really, really difficult to do. And, things changing in the source. How do I know in my downstream analytics or data product or applications that I have the most recent data? And I think that regardless of the data workload, you want to get out of the infrastructure game today. I really don't have anybody asking me, hey, give me more infrastructure. I said, you handle that Fivetran, you handle that Dremio, you handle that AWS. And when we talk about self-service analytics, it's got to be usable, trusted, organized, understandable data sets. And that's really what we are aiming to do in combination with S3 and Dremio. So you look at the categories that we have here, applications like Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow, any type of file system, ADLS, Google Drive, whatever it may be, events, and then certainly relational databases. So many organizations have a significant amount of relational databases, whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, and so on. When you move those data sets with Fivetran into S3, we're going to do a lot of work on the front end to ensure that what happens gives you that self-service analytics experience with Dremio, organized, understandable data. So we're going to compact it, dedupe it, normalize it, data type it out, ensure that anything that is PII, you have an opportunity to provide additional data privacy and anonymize that. Under the covers, what we're doing is from these data sets, we're converting that data into Parquet files, and then we're landing that in S3 and storing it as Apache Iceberg table format. So you get all of that goodness in that green box that you see there. So ACID compliance, time travel. I've got immediately queryable data like Ramel is going to show you here in just a little while. And your governance is managed. We're persisting the metadata to AWS Glue. So you've got that nice governance layer there. Really, the whole idea here is to accelerate your self-service analytics with Dremio in a modern data lake approach. There's very few prerequisites that are required. AWS account, an S3 bucket, and a Glue catalog. That's really about it. You can specify if you want to have a leading prefix or something like that as well. But there's not a whole lot to do here. Very simple to set up. Ramel,
Right.
any thoughts or comments on that one?
No, that's great, Kelly. I appreciate you sharing that. So here's the scope of our demo. Well, we are going to show you our setup here, and then Kelly is then going to show us how to extract data from these different systems. And then the output of that extract is actually into a Parquet format, but then once it lands into S3, that becomes Iceberg automatically because of that Glue integration. And then we'll query that data and then show you how to apply reflections. Our S3 bucket for this demo. So Kelly mentioned about prefix. You can prefix anything you want. And then going in there, we have several data sets or schemas, as what it's called in the Fivetran world. And with this list, these are just a sample that Kelly and I have done in the past. But with the schema that he's going to be creating brand new, I believe the prefix is accelerate.
Yep.
So it's going to show up here. And so once it's here, we'll check the data, and then that will automatically pop up into Dremio. So it's going to go into this Fivetran brown bag, which is essentially representative of the AWS Glue data catalog. And then we have a metadata refresh. For this demo, we set it to every minute just so we can pick that up. but the integration is pretty much done. We have that integrated here with the AWS Glue data catalog, and the schema will show up here. And then once it's here, we'll go ahead and query it. All right, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
Ramel, how many folks have seen the Fivetran UI before? So Fivetran has really two services. We've got a pure SaaS service. It's not fake SaaS. It is pure SaaS. You deploy no infrastructure. But if you need to deploy Fivetran behind your firewall, we actually have a private deployment option as well. So what we're showing today is the SaaS. You'll notice quite a few sources. I talked about databases, applications, files, and events. 467 sources out of the box. We've already got that S3 destination configured. Ramel showed it just a little while ago. We're going to be persisting this into an S3 bucket with all the associated metadata. That is, you'll see those Parquet files being created and landing as Apache Iceberg. And that really becomes the common broker for Dremio and Fivetran to offer really end-to-end self-service analytics. For Fivetran, self-service on the front end for the ingestion and replication. For Dremio, all of the access, all the workloads that you need there. So we will take a look. I've got an Oracle connector set up. You may have seen that in Ramel's S3 bucket a minute ago. SAP today, we are going to go Postgres. I've got a lab I've been working on that uses a Google Cloud Postgres SQL instance, and I've got that set up today. Let's name this Ramel. Let's go. I don't have to, by the way, and I think Ramel showed this a minute ago, I don't have to create a schema in S3 ahead of time. Fivetran is going to manage this schema creation as well as any associated schema drift. If things are added into, a column is added, a table is added, columns dropped, tables dropped into this Google Cloud Postgres SQL instance, Fivetran will manage that. So let's say accelerate S3 Dremio self-service. That ought to be pretty good. And I'm going to copy a couple of things here so you don't have to watch me type. I'm going to go my host identifier for a database. What you want to do is tell Fivetran, we've got to identify that database so that Fivetran as a service can be identified to it and select authenticate, as well as be able to select the data sets that we need. So I am not a user on that database, but Fivetran is. Get a password here. And I've got, for this Postgres instance, I've got multiple databases associated with it. I'm going to go after the data that is in the industry data set today. So schemas, tables, and columns associated with that. We'll connect direct. Got a range of ways that you can connect for a database to Fivetran, regardless of your networking or security requirements. You could do everything from a proxy connect to direct SSH, reverse SSH, VPN, and also a lot of different ways to detect changes. So Fivetran will do a historical sync of this data set that I select here in just a minute. And in addition, Fivetran will set me up automatically to handle any types of changes that occur in that database. So my CDC is automatically set up for me. And oh, by the way, you see this TLS certificate prompt. We're also not going to move any data unless we're able to encrypt it. So all data in motion is encrypted. Any data at rest that sits ephemerally in the Fivetran service, that is also encrypted as well. AES 256 and TLS for any data in motion. So Fivetran is going to run the connection test to the, in this case, Google Cloud Postgres SQL database. We should be green lighted here shortly. There we go. Connection tests have passed. And the next thing Fivetran is going to do is going to say, hey, Kelly, I know you want to move data over here to S3, populate it, create these Parquet files. You're going to want to populate it and store it as Apache Iceberg so that you've got this nice, elegant experience with Dremio. But what do you want in this data set? And so remember, we said we wanted the industry database, and I happen to have 11 schemas out there. I don't want them all. You'll notice up here, I can block or hash just about anything that I want. I'm going to go after, Ramel, what about agriculture and energy? You okay with those?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I've got 3 tables here. I could take all these schemas. I could take individual tables if I want to. In fact, I'll block wine quality red. 2 of my favorite beverages, by the way, Ramel, wine and coffee. And then at the column level, so let's check out this California wine production table. This is a just a sample data set, but if, let's say, commodity code was actually a PII column, I needed additional data privacy on it, I could hash it here so that if I hash, I maintain a key on that column, I can still use it in my downstream Dremio data and analytics self-service workflows that I have, but the data is anonymized, which is pretty cool. So I could hash that if I want to here. We also have little tip, private preview. We've got auto PII detection that is in private preview right now. So I'll be flagged that, hey, Kelly, driver's license or SSN is something you want to be careful of before you move it from the source, which typically it's okay there, but move it to an analytics platform or data lake, may not want to do that. I'm going to allow all changes, meaning that for additional tables and columns, schemas, I want to have Fivetran add that into this data set, persist it into S3, into the S3 destination for me so that we can use that for our self-service analytics with Dremio. And Ramel, I mean, that's about as easy as it is. This isn't a huge data set. We'll let it crank for just a minute. You'll see what's kind of happening in the background here from a log standpoint where we created the connector. I'm Central Time here, so about 3 minutes ago. I also can see my schemas up here in this top navigation. Usage doesn't show up until about 7 days. We want to get a feel for the changes that are happening. Fivetran doesn't charge for any historical syncs at all, but the incremental syncs, we look at any changes in an individual row that are happening. And then, of course, the setup, the sync frequency for incrementals, I can go from 1 minute up to 24 hours. So
this is great, Kelly. Yeah. So how often do you hear from customers that wants to do like CDC?
Every one of them. Every one of our connectors out of the box CDC. So I'd say that, the days of, kind of trunk and loading over and over and over. I mean, there's too many data sets for that, number one, and the complexity of doing that and the overhead that it puts on your system is not great. So being able to pick up the changes in a variety of ways. And for database connectors, Ramel, it's interesting. We can do logical replication. We can do physical log-based replication. We've got a log-less replication, which is what I use today with Teleport. So you have this range of options depending on database size, your database versions, all that kind of thing.
Perfect. Yeah. And I do see the data now in S3.
Well, why don't I turn it back over to you then to take everybody through it?
All right. So here's my S3. As you can see, these 2 schemas are already here. It's populated. So let's go take a look at this self-service agriculture, Kelly's favorite drink. Let's go to data, and we see 2 Parquet files. Cool. Awesome. So it's there. Now let's go here and take a look at that schema. It's also here. So Dremio picked it up automatically from AWS Glue. And so let's go ahead and take a look at our data set. All right, so we have 2 tables here. And we can go ahead and go to the table and create try and create quick. See what's in it. Came back really fast. So we have really full data set here. And now as a analyst or data engineer, I can start, issuing queries here, finding patterns or prepping that data in a way where, I can be productive in terms of, meeting my ability to make decisions within, a couple hours, minutes, the data is there. It's really fast. So as you can see, Kelly showed us, how to extract the data, went to S3, Dremio automatically picking it up, and this data or this table is actually powered by Iceberg. and now we're able to interact with it. So as part of our agenda for the demo earlier that we shared with you, we are going to show you how to do reflections as well. What is reflections? Reflections is really good tool to use when you notice that certain queries are slowing down, or you have a external data source. This could be a database, that could be MySQL, SQL Server, you name it, an external call, right? And so you want to accelerate that query. And so you can use reflections for the purpose. And we do, both raw reflections and also aggregate reflections. Now, there are a couple of things here that we need to essentially enable. We have to partition the data when we apply reflections, and typically that's the date or timestamp, and you can partition it at a different granularity level, right? So that could be year, that could be month, and so on. We also have sorting here, where once the data is partitioned, within that partition, there could be data that are of high cardinality, so you want to sort them, and that helps with speeding up your queries as well. So it's partitioned, it's sorted, and now you're able to leverage this reflection to essentially boost your query performance. So really simple concept. Same thing for the aggregation. So you have the sorting and partitioning of that, and the only difference is you define your measure, and that's because you're aggregating, right? So you have to pick a number here to calculate on, and then a dimension as well, that you would be grouping by. And so these are pretty much tools that you would want to use to improve query performance. So that's pretty much it. From my end, we have the data. We know how to apply the reflections. So if I go back into our schema here real quick, as you can tell, there are several things that you can see here, not just the AWS Glue Metastore, but also what we call here a place for you to define a folder, which are essentially spaces. And this folder allows you to then organize your data per business unit or data product that you're actually building. So just a good way to then put some level of organization of your data, aligns well with organizations implementing data mesh as well. Great. So that pretty much concludes our demo here. Let's see, Kelly, if we have some questions on the chat.
Okay. And then first off, great presentation, guys. Again, if anyone has any questions, do put them in either in the Q&A box or into the chat box. So I'm going to open those up and get those going. So again, if you have any questions about Fivetran, about Dremio, about the data lakehouse, feel free to ask. And then again, also make sure you answer that poll that might be just popping up on your screen at the moment.
Ramel and Alex, I was going to mention too, I mean, you look at what we just demoed and you go, oh, well, Kelly, Ramel, this is, demo mode. I mean, what you saw, I mean, this is what you do for a production environment. There is no Fivetran demo mode. That is Fivetran. And so it's literally that simple. There's a ton going on in the background, but Ramel, you talked about, how do we, from a data access standpoint, democratize data. Dremio doing a fantastic job of that. And then Fivetran on the front end, democratizing data, where I think even at a business unit, somebody could come in. You saw how easy that setup was. As long as you have the authentication details to your source, you have that flowing. And so you're really covering both ends of it. And then you have S3 in the middle, providing that, kind of that broker between the two, which is really nice. So you get this end-to-end self-service.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? Because our setup is pretty much production grade. It's just that the data set is not real, but just to show like the integration there, all the setup is a production grade.
Yeah.
So We can, if there are no questions here, Alex, we can talk about Iceberg as well, and then the value between Fivetran and Dremio if you start using it.
Sure. I mean, that'd be great. Like, because again, in Fivetran, you have many sources. In Dremio, you can connect many sources because you can federate sources as you be that interface for analytics. Now, what is sort of the added value of basically using Apache Iceberg as that standard format through the whole supply chain from the end of both platforms?
Yeah. Cool. Looks like 2 questions pop up, Alex.
Oh, got it. Let me get to
Yeah,
those.
we might just need to go there and.
Okay. Yep. Let me just get. Oh, there they are. Okay. Okay. First question we have from Armando Gabriel. Are you going to show how to convert the data set imported to S3 into an Iceberg table? I'll let you guys answer that.
I'll take that one. Yeah, it was done. That's what Fivetran does automatically for you. So there was no additional manipulation done. That was the live data set that you saw that we moved into S3 that Ramel accessed. So convert to Parquet files. Those Parquet files are then stored into Apache Iceberg format in S3, making them, the cool thing is, and you ask Alex about what's the value of Iceberg, that is the value of Iceberg. I've got immediate ability in an analytics format to do whatever I need to do from a self-service analytics standpoint with Dremio.
Exactly. Yeah. And to add to that, Kelly, it's the AWS glue that pretty much tied this all together, right? So Fivetran drop it in Parquet format, and that is pretty much the foundation for Iceberg datasets, right? Has to be in Parquet, and then there are libraries and specifications that then gets applied by AWS glue automatically, transparently. You don't have to worry about it, and then turns it into an Iceberg format. And so we showed you earlier the settings on our Dremio UI, where we have the Fivetran brown bag Metastore. That's pretty much AWS glue. So once you have that integration, we're hands off. We don't do any kind of conversion because AWS glue takes care of that for us.
In addition to that, if any changes occur in any of those data sets, schemas, tables, columns, added, dropped, all of that schema drift and change is persisted over. So you have a faithful representation source to S3 for any of your Dremio Data Lake Analytics, always up to date in S3. And again, you could set that from a 1-minute incremental sync up to 24 hours if you want, or anything in between almost.
Right. And to add to that, right, since we're already talking about Iceberg as well, let me just show you this slide real quick. So really, we simplify everything for the customers, right? You don't even have to worry about converting Parquet to Iceberg because that's done automatically, transparently. And these are the different value propositions, if you will, for using an Iceberg. And Kelly mentioned earlier about, like the partition evolution, schema evolution, right? That's a sweet spot for Apache Iceberg. And a lot of the formats that we know of today, even open source one, they don't even do partition evolution. So you get transaction consistency across different applications, right? Because you have full read isolation. And then you have schema evolution as well, where every single column is tracked by unique ID. And so with that information, Iceberg can transparently evolve, that schema and manage also the metadata changes automatically for you. And snapshots are a thing of Iceberg, and that gets used for time travel. So if you want to replay like what my data looked like in the past for investigation purposes, you can do that. And then obviously partition evolution as well. Like you don't have to blow away your existing data when you change your partition. Like I've worked with open source databases in the past where if you have to change the partition, you have to blow all that data in the database and recreate those partitions. With Iceberg, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and just to add like one more thing that's amazing about when you're using Apache Iceberg, particularly with Dremio, because you use Fivetran to land that data as Apache Iceberg, and Dremio is reading that data. Ramel showed that feature earlier, reflections, And when you create reflections on Apache Iceberg table specifically, those reflections get updated incrementally. So anytime that underlying Apache Iceberg table gets updated, that reflection is going to get updated. So that acceleration you get from that will always remain crisp and fresh and consistent, which is super nice, because basically if you're powering BI dashboards, you're always going to have like the freshest data as Fivetran is bringing that data in. So it works out really well when you have Apache Iceberg at the core of the thing. Now, another question we got from Zero Thoroval: which component do you use to implement the transform part of the warehouse? Ramel?
That's a good question. So you can do the transformation into Dremio if you want, but with organizations, that's pretty much established, right? They have their own toolings, and that tooling could be DBT, or it could be Spark, could be Informatica. There's a whole lot of toolings out there that you can use for transformation. The good news is, we have integrations with like some of the tools like DBT and Airflow, right, as to name a few. And that native integration allows you to then build your transformation into Dremio. We also have JDBC, ODBC drivers, or Aeroflight. If you're using that, you can leverage those drivers to then interact with that data set to define your transformation as well.
Ramel, I really like the fact that Dremio is not overly opinionated on transformations. We try to be the same way. I think if you tell people you got to do transformations this way, one way only, it becomes very difficult, because it's a very organization specific function usually, and almost nobody does it the same way. So having integration with DBT, allowing me to do kind of choose my own way I want to transform, is to me is a great way to go. We have nice integrations with DBT as well, but we don't say that's the way you have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%. Those are very great answers. And again, yeah, so like basically when you're using Fivetran and Dremio, you have a lot of flexibility on where your data is coming from, where you're sending it to, how you're analyzing it, how you're accessing that data, where you're delivering it to, and governing that data. So seems like a really amazing pairing, and it's been really awesome to have you two here this week to kind of tell us all about it. So I just want to say thank you, Ramel, thank you, Kelly, for being on the show this week, and we look forward to having you on the show again sometime in the future. And but yeah, I think we are. Yep. Go for it.
Alex, if I can just show one more thing here. Sure. For our upcoming events, that you showed that earlier. Let me just show this real quick. So you can go to these different links right here to try out Dremio and Fivetran. One of the things I'd like to highlight here is the Subsurface conference happening next year of May 2nd to the 3rd. So we organized this. It's a Dremio community. It's a lot of companies out there, 3,000 plus, that's going to be joining, and it's going to be a great event. But obviously, if you're at the Microsoft Azure AI conference, we'll be there, and also reInvent.
Yep. And on the note of Subsurface, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say same thing. If you're at reInvent, please come see us. Alex and Ramel, this has been awesome. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you very much. And then for any of you guys interested in speaking at Subsurface, the Subsurface call for speakers is currently open, and that'll be open up to December 22nd for anyone who wants to submit at dremio.com/subsurface. But yes, again, make sure to stop by reInvent if you're coming to reInvent. Stop by the Fivetran table, stop by the Dremio table, and well, any data event you go to, stop by the Fivetran table and the Dremio table. But with that, I'll see you all next week. Have a great day and enjoy.